All right, I'm Steve Potter. Loren Watt is alongside. David Kimball is political science professor at UMSL. He was with us earlier. He rejoins us. Next to him, please welcome Alfreda Brown from the League of Women Voters. And to my right, David Hunn, reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
So, you've been, I guess, well, let's start with the reporter first.
So, I mean, we were just looking.
You've been watching all night, so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, we were just looking at the results as they've come in. So there's, there's still 40% reporting, but Lewis is in a tough spot. So Francis is up by 10 points. For Lewis to win at this point, he's got to take the rest, really the rest of the wards.
Okay, well, 40% in. What's the general rule? What can be in before you call it?
Oh, it would be a while before I'd call it. But with Francis up by 10 percentage points, he's at 55 to 44. So Lewis would have to take. He'd really have to turn the tables altogether. So he would have to resoundingly win the 3rd, which is Bosley's ward. The 6, 7 are the Central Corridor. 9 is Soulard. And then 17 and 19 are that section right around St. Louis University and Barnes Jewish. And so those are areas that Lewis could take. So he appeals well to the kind of the hipster voter. And he could take him, but Francis has also done well in those wards. So this is a really interesting time. I mean, I think we're really on the cusp of figuring out what's going to happen right now.
You said the 6th ward, that was his old ward, correct? No, that was Casey Star Triplett.
That is Lewis's.
So he should be strong in that ward. He should be strong in 19, 17. What was the other ward you mentioned?
17 and 19 he'll do well in. 23 is the other one he won't do well there. That's Vaccaro's ward. Yeah. Right. So that's Slay's home turf. But Reed will do well in 6. 7 is downtown, so he could do well there too. And then 17 and 19 are going to be interesting. So that's Joe Rohde and Marlene Davis's ward, and that'll be a.
What would be the biggest news story? The bigger of the two news stories, that Mayor Slay wins a 4th term, or that he's upset?
I tell you what, this has been, so from a totally, just a reporter's view, this has been a fun election. I mean, these are two good candidates who have, lots of credentials. I mean, it's the best
mayor's race we've had in a long time.
Absolutely.
And, two citywide elected officials, that's what brings people out.
It's probably the toughest race these guys will ever face. Even if if the things stand, the mayor will kill the president. That'll be way, he'll really beat him well. But it'll still be a great race. I mean, it's just been two quality individuals duking it out. You can't get a whole lot better than that.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a closer outcome than the mayor has had the last 2 times.
Any perspective from the League of Women Voters?
Well, we usually do our work before elections.
Right.
And so we are very much involved in trying to educate the public about the candidates before nights like tonight. And so we're hoping that those who went to the polls tonight actually voted with information that they found helpful from the public forums that we've held leading up to the election.
Well, do you have any sense from the forums that you have had where the public's coming from, what's on their mind, or the general attitude the public has?
Yeah,
if you can make any broad statements.
Well, just from the observations of attending the forums, I agree that this has been by far the most exciting and energized pre-election period that we've seen in a while, in that all of the candidates that showed up for the forum had, we thought, very good ideas for the future of the city of St. Louis. They also were very responsive to the audience. When the audience asked very pointed questions, most of them had some good answers for them. So I think people were really energized by what they heard and what they saw from the candidates leading up to tonight.
And I'm curious, David or David. For Mr. Reed to do this well, of course he had to want it, but he must have really thought he can win. Do you think?
Sure, I don't think you run unless you think you have a shot at winning the election.
And do you think the determining factor greatly here was money? I mean, if Reed had won $2 million worth of campaign ads. I mean, the cost per voter is a disparity, I think.
Right, it would have been closer. I mean, I think if Louis Reed had raised $2 million, that would have been an indicator there were a lot more people upset with the mayor and the current direction of the city.
So maybe, you know, we're reporting only 40% in, right? And the mayor's ahead by 10%. But when you look at the disparity in what they spent, Alderman Reed's, President Reed's done pretty well.
He's gotten a pretty good bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Reed, you know, from the beginning, Reed said that he needed a certain amount of money, and it wasn't $1 million. I forget exactly how much. I think he said 500,000. But he never thought he needed the kind of money that Slay usually produces in the elections. I mean, you know, this is a sitting mayor who really campaigns 12 months of the year. So he is always raising money for some cause or another. In this case, it happens to be for his election. So Reed never thought he was going to raise the same amount of money. The question was could he motivate the voters who were, you know, he really put together a coalition of people who were dissatisfied with Slay. And, you know, we see a lot of that. We see the firefighters, we see some, you know, some union reps, some carpenters, we see plenty of folks, plenty of activists who didn't like the direction the city's going in. And the question really is it going to be enough? I'll say this, we just got some new results in. So now it looks like we've got 81%.
81% of the vote in?
Yeah, and that's what it's looking like. And things actually look like they're staying about the same without getting into the specifics.
Do you think Mayor Slay has out-politicked Louis Reed in getting the Clay and Nasheed backing? He came out early with Clay and got Jamila Nasheed to back him, who had been a vocal critic in the past. Do you think he out-politicked Reed in that area?
I mean, this goes back to that Slay campaigns 12 months a year. So now, you know, you can argue whether he's working as hard as some people say he does, but what you can't argue about is that he's making those connections all the time. He's putting them together for a whole bunch of different reasons. When they happen to be for his campaign, he probably works a little harder at it. But yeah, he knew what he was doing when he endorsed Clay. That, you know,
and it helps when your horse wins too. I mean, that's really the big bang for the buck right there.
Well, that's the strategy. Is he picks somebody who wins.
I think the Reed campaign, or some will be looking back, wishing they had endorsed Nasheed and Clay back last year.
I thought so. I thought he was on the fence for too long. And, you know, you got to pick, though. He picked Carnahan. Is that right?
Well, he was neutral in the congressional race between Carnahan and Clay.
Right. And I think that neutrality didn't pay off in the long run.
No.
It doesn't look like it anyway. If both candidates had had $2 million, how would it have turned out? There were limits on the money.
You got him.
The silence fell across the
table.
We got to keep talking. It's TV, people. No dead time.
Well, I think I'll add something. I think one interesting thing, looking at the turnout of the wards that have reported, the North Side wards turnout was about the same as the South Side wards, which is more
than expected.
Yeah, in previous local elections of this kind, turnout's been higher in the South Side.
And I thought that would be this case with the North Side wards, a lot of contentious races going on. That would bring people out to vote for the alderman. And while I'm here, I might as well vote for the mayor, because normally you can take 11, 13, or 10 and outvote all the North Side with those 3 wards, because those people go out and vote. And people in the North Side, in my opinion, are apathetic and don't vote, because when you go from 70% of people voting in the presidential election to what percentage of voters are coming in tonight? Is 15,
22,
maybe 20%?
Something like that.
Yeah, and that's higher than it was in 2009. It was like 14% in 2009.
It's in the teens sometimes. Yeah.
Your Mayor Slay won in 2009 with about 19,000 votes. Smith had about 10,000 votes.
But remember, I mean, this city turns out when it wants to. I mean, you can motivate people. I mean, remember the Clay election, the one we were just talking about. I mean, that was a landslide in North City that won. It really sealed the deal for a whole bunch of candidates in the North Side. Clay, Tashara Jones, Michael Watson, Michael Butler. That's it. A bunch of those guys. So it's. You know, I really think that Clay and the Hubbards played big role in this election. It looks like it right now, at least. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see tomorrow, but.
Are we going to have to wait till tomorrow?
Are we going to be here till
Are we going to be here till tomorrow?
I don't think so. No.
Well, let's right now check in with Debbie Monterey.
Thanks, Steve. Joining us in studio right now is the president and CEO of the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis, JimBuford. Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For those people that may not know, talk a little bit about the mission statement of the Urban League.
The Urban League is a human service and civil rights organization created over 100 years ago in 1910 in New York to help initially African Americans move into urban centers. Today the mission is not only for African Americans but Asians, Latinos, all people that are disenfranchised. So the mission is to help disenfranchised people in urban settings and empower them in employment, education, housing, and health care.
And talk about the services that people most come to Urban League to get nowadays.
Well, the Urban League here in St. Louis, excuse me, is one of the largest urban leagues in the country. So we have a myriad of services. Primarily, it's housing counseling, foreclosure prevention, and emergency assistance for renters and owners. LAHEEB energy assistance, that's for people who need help with their heating, well, actually electric bill and their gas bill. Education, Head Start. We're a Head Start provider, plus we have a business training center, and lastly, workforce investment, jobs, finding jobs. So employment, education, housing, and then we have our 3 outreach centers to provide emergency service and food and clothing and helping with mortgage and rent.
And I know along with providing those services, you partner with a lot of other organizations in the community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. For instance, our Head Start program, we partner with the YWCA. They're the grantee. We're the delegate agency. In terms of workforce investment, we partner with St. Louis County and the County Career Center. In terms of housing, we have a Fannie Mae Center that's headquartered out in Clayton to work on foreclosure, and then with the city, we work in the foreclosure prevention area. Every major program we usually have a partner that we work with. We work with Better Family Life. We work with Castle, St. Louis area agency, community action agency. So we have resources, but we do not have the resources to attack the problem. And I think you hit a key point, is that agencies need to collaborate and combine their resources to make a difference.
Right. Now, with this mayoral election, given that we have kind of a weak mayoral system, we were talking off camera before we started here, that they have a number of city-county jobs that the mayor doesn't really control, so to speak. With this system of government that we have now, can the mayor really affect the type of really drastic change that we need in the city to make this a Tier 1 city?
At the present time, I don't think so. I know we've had attempts, as you know, of our long careers of attempts to change the city charter. The actual power lies within the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. That's the comptroller, the president of the Board of Aldermen, and the mayor. As it sits today, the mayor does not have control of the police department, although that has changed. But heretofore, he couldn't control the police department. He had no control over the St. Louis public schools. Most of the departments, with the city and the county separating during the Civil War, you have county jobs and city jobs, right, and there's some duplication. So not only is the mayor weakened, basically all the mayor can do is use his bully pulpit, give leadership, and try to politically leverage his office with the comptroller and the president of the Board of Aldermen to get things done. Fortunately, we've been somewhat successful with this weak form of government. With the mayor being weak and then not having a city manager, that even dilutes it even more. So we've been pretty effective with this weak form of government, but I don't know how long we could continue that.
Now, just recently, they have made some movement to strengthen up the mayor's office by moving the police department under the mayor's control, I think June or July of this year. Do you think that will really make any big difference in bringing the drastic violence that we have in the city down?
I think so. There are a lot of strategies that have been employed. I think with Chief Isom, we got a good start on this, targeting certain areas of the community, and I think Chief Dotson is going to follow the lead there. The fact that the mayor now controls the budget, where heretofore he didn't. He had to provide it with the demands of the commissioners, which came with the gubernatorial appointees. Mm-hmm. I think he can control the budget, and that will, one, keep the city on a sound financial footing, and number two, allow the mayor to shift the funds and give direction to the chief to do this segmented policing. So I think it will help. It won't make a big difference. And in anybody solving crime, I think the solution there is in the neighborhood, not with the police department.
Switching gears a little bit, we've had people on from the Bosnian community. We had Jorge Rio Pedre on from the Hispanic community. What should the African-American community look for after the election, no matter who gets to be mayor? What can we look for out of that office?
From the mayor's office?
Yeah, what should we look for?
We should look for a leader who can bring the various factions together. I think you mean the fact of the brown community, Asian, Latino community, the black community, the Bosnians. All these various segments of the community must come together as one. Right now, I think we're a bit separated. We always talk north and south, right, and then there's the east side. We need to get rid of those boundaries, and there has been some early dialogue between African American and Hispanic leadership and some on the south side. The aldermen are talking more. I think we do need to reduce the size of the board of aldermen, and we're going that way. But I think that the community's coming together as one to address education, to address crime, to address housing issues would do more than the mayoral form of government if the community comes together and gives the dictates to the alderman, the president, the comptroller, and the mayor. I think that's a better solution. There's no political solution to the issues we have. It's going to be a community solution.
Very good. And we're just about out of time, but I hear your golf game is getting ready to get a whole lot better around May.
Yes, I'm going to retire in May. I don't know if it'll get any better, but I'll have more time to work on it. And thank you for all your support for the many years. We've been good friends, and you've been an asset to the community.
All right. Thank you very much. JimBuford, the president of the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis. Back to you, Steve.
Well, good job, Loren, and you got some compliments on top of it.
Yeah, I'm an asset to the community.
You really are.
You heard it here first.
I never doubted it for a second. Well, good job. That was such. You evidently have had a relationship with him.
Yes, I've interviewed JimBuford for many years, and I know him fairly well, and I know his golf game is getting better because he's getting ready to retire. I wish I could join him.